Now, this morning we're asking, is it sexist to call someone a housewife? Some people think that it is, as it suggests women are submissive to men and defined by their marriage. So is it time to make job titles gender neutral? That's our talking point here on Sunrise this morning. Here to discuss it further in the studio with me now, Ella Whelan, freelance journalist, and live from Edinburgh, the comedian Kate Smurthwaite. Good morning to you both. Ella, I'll come to you first. The term housewife, do you see it as sexist?
No. I think there's something kind of nasty and sneery about the call for it to be labelled sexist, because actually I think a lot of women, the point is that women are not forced to be in the home anymore. That's a thing of the past, and women who choose to work at home, takes a lot to work at home, by the way, child rearing and cleaning and all that kind of stuff, significant amount of work. Women who choose to do that should be free to do that. I think this is, again, as so much of contemporary feminism, is a kind of problem making among some middle class commentators, judging the lives of working class women. That doesn't sit right with me. I don't think it sits right with a lot of women. Yeah,
Kate, do you think it's sexist, or is it other people being a bit sneery about the term?
Well, I think it absolutely depends on the context. As with so many of these words, of course, if you're somebody who stays home and works very hard and likes the term housewife and is happy to use it, the difficulty is when you go somewhere and it's a complete mess and somebody says, oh, we need a housewife around here, which is implying that this place needs tidying up, and that is somehow the job of womankind to do it. So it's absolutely not a sexist term, provided you're making sure that you use it in a way that doesn't sort of run with this assumption that all cleaning up is necessarily women's jobs. So I don't think that it's necessarily a sexist term, but I think it's one of these words that we have to think about the context in which we use it. I mean, there are certainly sort of, bigger issues out there that women are contending with, but we have to make sure that we don't sort of, although, as Ella says, women aren't forced into these roles anymore, or at least hopefully not in this country very much, but women often feel pressured in these kind of roles, and there is that sort of sense, if your house is a mess, that it's the woman who feels guilty about that rather than the guy sometimes. So I think as long as we're saying we need a housewife or a house husband around here, I think it's fair enough. But I think we need to be sure that we don't use it, as you say, as a job title. We're not advertising we need a housewife around here. We're saying we need a housekeeper, if that's what you're looking for.
It's interesting. I've just had a tweet here, just as you mentioned the word house husband. This is from Dave Jones, who's tweeted me this morning, saying, I am a house husband and I'm not offended by that term. He says, is political correctness gone mad if you can't say housewife or house husband?
I think that's a fairly sensible point of view. I mean, there are some very practical things that we can do to make life easier for women, and especially in relation to kind of child rearing, looking after the home. Free at the point of access, good quality, 24-hour childcare is a very clear demand that women can make. That would mean that they don't have to be housewives, or they don't have to be stay-at-home mums if they don't want to. I mean, I come from a family of women. My mother, my aunties stayed at home, reared us. It was their choice. They were perfectly happy to do that. I'm myself about to become a wife, and I'm totally fine with that label. I like it. The problem is, I think, and dare I say this, as a journalist, we're getting hung up on words and hung up on vocabulary and politicising women's lives in a way that isn't helpful. What we really are doing is say there's a right and a wrong way to be a woman. There's a right and a wrong way to be a wife. There's a right and a wrong way to have your life. And I think that's why so many women are turning off feminism. So many women aren't attracted to this kind of lecturing tone. I think that if we talked about what women want, childcare,
Ella, you're totally lecturing us right now.
Let's find out what one woman wants. Kate wants to interject. Go on, Kate.
Well, it's really interesting, on the one hand, the idea that anyone is saying you mustn't use this word, it's wrong. It's all about the context, and it's so interesting because Ella was just saying, oh, there's so much we can do to help women, and then the first thing she mentioned was providing childcare, and that, just by saying it that way, it's kind of pushing this agenda that childcare is women's job. Actually, providing childcare helps all those people who look after children, and it helps housewives, and it helps house husbands. It helps people who are children's primary carers. Actually, it very much ignores, gay parents and lesbian parents and people where the household doesn't work that way, single parents and all these kind of groups. And I think we've just got to think about the way that we talk about these things so that we don't always talk about child caring and cleaning up as though that is the responsibility of the woman and her
we do want to change the narrative, Kate, but statistically it is women that stay at home with the children.
Yeah, I mean,
that just is a fact.
Yeah,
we want to change that.
So Kate seems to be, with greatest respect to Kate, she seems to be confused. On the one hand, she's saying this is an issue that we have to make women's lives better. On the other hand, she's saying women aren't the main ones who raise children. Women are at the moment women aren't
now you're just arguing with yourself, Ella.
Hang on, women are still the key nose wipers, the ones who will book the appointments for the doctors, the ones who will do the lion's share of the child rearing.
Nobody wants to have the title nose wiper.
They don't do that. No, as in that is a thing that women still socially do, and that they're not forced to do it, but that's the case. And so having a practical solution like free at the point of access childcare, which I think you'll find doesn't get a lot of airtime. It's not something that a lot of feminists are particularly keen on pushing. Don't know why. Doing that rather than carping about the vocabulary and being. Hang on, Kate. If you let me speak. If you just chill out.
Yeah, but you're saying things that are outright lies, Ella, and it would be ridiculous not to call you out on it. The idea that feminists aren't campaigning for childcare is a complete nonsense. Feminists have been campaigning on this issue for years and years and years, and I don't see you helping out.
No,
what I see you doing is moaning about feminism, and you're not helping. Thanks for your time.
Okay, Kate, let's just let Ella finish, and I'll allow you to come back.
So the point is, you've got feminism characterised as this quite middle-class, sneery, carping kind of narrative that tells women how they should define themselves, what they should call themselves. Women out there, the rest of the women who are actually getting on with life, want to have something practical happen, not this ridiculous conversation.
Okay, Kate.
Well, first of all, Ella, if you think it's a ridiculous conversation, why did you agree to go on air and talk about it? That is completely
it's always fun
ridiculous.
Sparring with
and
you,
then
Kate.
you characterise feminism. Yeah, you said I wasn't to interrupt you, so shut up. You then said that feminism was characterised as this awful, moaning middle-class thing. But in actual fact, I know loads of feminists who don't fit that group in the slightest and who are campaigning like me. A lot of the work that I do is around refugee women and is around women's rights, right at like the absolute sort of industrial front line, women who've been victims of sexual violence, women who've been raped. I'm up here in Edinburgh doing a show challenging exactly those issues. And the idea of, we're characterising it, I mean, that is the choice of people like yourself, Ella, who choose to come on air and take those debates, and the choice of the media that choose which issues to highlight. Now, feminists have been campaigning about childcare and about real issues the whole way through, and the fact that on the way through we would like to be treated respectfully in terms of language, we would like to change the way we talk about, gender roles and this kind of stuff. I think it's an important part of the campaign. It's not the only part, but I think it's great that people are challenging it, and I welcome them to the movement, along with the people who are working on the perhaps, more obvious and more visceral issues. I think feminism is a broad church, and I think everybody who's contributing to it is absolutely welcome. I only wish you'd come join us, Ella.
Okay, Kate, thank you. A final word from you, Ella, because we have to wrap things up. We're running out of time.
Yeah, look, me and Kate both think that women should be free and equal. That's something that we're going to definitely always agree on. The point is, I think the narrative of feminism being completely capitalised by this very unhelpful, sneery discussion about what women should be, how women should identify themselves, what language we use in relation to women. Let's talk about the practicalities of what women's lives need. It's big political ideas. It's change. If you stopped a woman in the street today, if we went out there and said, what is your political identity? No chance they would say feminist. And that's the problem. We need to look at why that is.
Okay, Ella, Kate, lively discussion as always when you two get together. Is the term housewife sexist? Let us know what you think. Frightened to ask now. News@sky.com or tweet me @SkySarahJane. Thank you both very much.
Thanks.